Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Overshot, a paintball podcast. Before we get started with our guest, I have to tell you again about Zana Sports, makers of the SF joggers and the Grind to Air gloves. If you go to their website, dazinasports.com, and you'll save 10%. And yeah, guys, it's a good code. You guys have been using it. It's been saving money. It's been helping us out a lot. They just got the version 2 joggers that are shipping out. So go pick up some of that stuff. But without further ado, back again. He wanted more. We want to give you more. The man, Joey B, is back in the house. Thank you for joining us, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me back. I appreciate it.
All right, awesome. So Joey has been on the show in the past. So if you want to maybe listen to the more beginning of his story, go listen to our previous episode with him. But we're going to pick it up right now from right before you got on New York Extreme, and then, or I guess it was the New York Outlaws then?
Yeah, there was. So if I recall, last time I finished off talking about my trip in Asia with KTM and
Right.
Fedorov and Mishka and Harrison. But before that, I believe in like the growth of my paintball history, we talked about when I didn't make damage the first time
Mm-hmm.
and got out of the hellhole that is Central Florida, Auburndale area. So yeah, I guess. Yeah, there's a lot that happened between now and then. I still haven't got to currently play with DMG, but yeah, I guess we
Right.
could just get right back into it. um, yeah, so you guys, I don't know if I told you this last time when we were off the phone, but this is a funny story. So, I get picked up and leave Florida and go back home with my bunch of college friends after the NCPA Nationals. And I get back to New York, and now the season is about to begin. And I know I'm going to just look for another semi-pro team. And who calls me to play with them but Florida Static, who I just lived near and played with for a year against Tampa Bay Damage. I get back home, and they apparently, I think it was, I want to say Cody Lowry got in a car accident, and John Glanville just went to Vicious, his first pro, debut.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, we could use a sixth guy. We're pretty light right now,
Right.
and you know how to play with us. So if you want to play, just get yourself to the event. So I was like, all right, sounds good. So I started playing in semi-pro with Static, who is a great team, always a Sunday team. And I had a lot of good friends on that team, great guys. Several of them went pro. The owner and captain of that team is Johnny Smith, or people call him Junior, son to senior, who owns CFP, Central Florida Paintball.
Right.
And that was an awesome few events. I didn't play a whole season with them just because they didn't play every event that year. But I was also kind of playing back and forth with Detroit 810, who was like kind of a ragtag D1 team of like the better Michigan players that were left over from, I want to say, TCP Machine, which is like a
Okay.
well-known 7-man, like kind of NPPL team. So yeah, I just had like a good season and a half going back and forth between those teams, and kind of just being a fill-in role player, whatever Static needed, and going to a bunch of Sundays, and kind of being more of a captain on 810 because that was a team that moved up from D3 up to semi-pro. So they were looking for some guidance,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just willing to bring on like a more experienced player to like kind of help, you know, run the ship, I guess you could say, and win the tougher points if need be. And yeah, awesome time. Two really, really fun teams to be on. But those teams, like basically those teams, it was weird having to live in New York and play with a Florida team. But living in New York is what brought me to the opportunities that were some of the best opportunities that led me to where I am today. Um, the first people think that it was just immediately New York Extreme, but actually I got called by my coach, longtime coach from the rhythm camp, Buddy Bauer. You guys heard the name?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you don't know the
Yeah,
guy that owns Free Flow,
yeah, yeah. Do you guys have any personal relationship with him, or you guys talk to him, or get a free flow gun or anything like that?
I don't know him personally, but one of the good buddies on my team has a free flow gun, which he never uses, so I use it all the time. Shoots butter.
Do you love it?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, they are amazing. That gun is. He sent me one of the first Millennium guns, and God, there's not enough words I could say about how fun it is to shoot that marker.
Oh, it's so much. It's so much fun. So much fun. I'm
Yeah.
like, why don't you use this? He's like, oh, I don't know. He's guy's got like a bunch of guns. I'm like, yo, if you're not gonna use this, I am. Give me this fucking thing.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if we're not having serious practices like layout practices, or basically if I'm not playing a semi-pro or a pro team, I use my free flow autococker even on the X ball field.
There you go. Get it.
Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, Buddy's one of those guys who I can say is, if I had to name a bunch of like mentors or influential people in my life, he's one of those people I always have to kind of bring up in the conversation. Most
Mhm.
people in California will bring up like Todd Martinez or Matty Marshall or people like that. But even if you guys don't know him personally, anybody in the Northeast knows the name Buddy
Oh yeah.
Bauer because he just has this like legendary winning persona from the NYXL and AXBL days when he used to play pro on Detroit Thunder, and Shockwave and Lockout and all these different like old school X ball, and before that 10-man teams. And when he stopped playing pro, he became like the most known coach in the Northeast because he took Titman Effect in PSP and Rhythm in the regional leagues and just won everything. Like
Yeah.
you just win an event, it'd pay for the next event. You'd win a league or a series, it would cover the next one. From like I want to say like 2005 till 2009 when the AXBL folded. That's just what Buddy was doing. He was making
Right.
young killers, and I was in his camp for a lot of those years. So I want to say it was end of 2013. Buddy gave me a call and said, "Hey, I'm bringing the Rhythm team back. We're going to be well funded." He was already like running a Chevy dealership at the time, so he's like, between GI Sports head to toe and my own dealership, it's going to be a very well funded semi-pro team. And I'm only picking up the best of the best. I don't want to half-ass this. I want to make a team that is Sunday right off the back and hopefully winning.
Yeah.
And
Built
that's
to
what he
win.
did. He put together, like, basically he grabbed me and four of the other like best players in New York you could find at the time, um, and then grabbed the five Canadian players that would become like the core of Distortion later on. And then a bunch of those guys actually became Aftermath players the last season or two. Tom Guest, let's see here, who else? Drew Guppy, just a few of those Canadian the better players out of that Toronto region were the other half. So we had two lines and hyper competitive amongst the two lines. So you had to really earn your play time and your keep, and
Yeah.
just and then him as the 11th guy, and he can outplay a lot of people, but he's more the coach. You're just stacked with like a wealth of talent and experience. Most of these guys have won CXBL championships or AXBL championships or whatever, and we've all been playing for years. So Buddy made
Right.
this kind of superstar team, and we played several events, and we would just make Sunday every event, and then just lose in like top 8 for whatever reasons, to teams at the time that would all eventually go pro. Like I remember we had been knocked out by Revo, and then they went pro. We had been knocked out by Outlaws. I think they actually went pro just before that.
Mhm.
We had been knocked out by Boom,
Yeah.
like the year before they earned their pro spot. So you could just see all these teams that were like the very pinnacle of semi-pro, and sure enough, those were the teams that would win their spot to go up to pro.
Right.
Yeah.
It's too funny. It's like you were the proving ground. They beat you, and then they got to go to the pro.
Kinda.
Yeah.
It felt like that. In your heads, you're upset because you're like, oh man, I feel like we should be winning these events. But at least it was kind of like affirming that, we would never really lose to those crappy teams or the inconsistent teams. You'd lose to the teams that were consistently top 4 on the podium, even if they weren't winning that event. It was a team that was always there. So yeah, like I remember seeing DMG a few times and having close back and forth points with them back then. And then, of course, there was this new team coming into the scene called New York Outlaws. And these are the guys we all know and love now as New York Extreme. It's basically the Hussein brothers, Patrick Kraft, Harrison Fry at the time.
Yep.
Let me see here else. There was a few other guys back then that aren't with the team anymore.
Yeah.
And some of the guys on the current team weren't there back then. But a lot of the better players in the area who, if you grew up in the Northeast, you could tell these guys could ball. They've been playing for 10 plus years. They're all those guys who are pro caliber, but there's just only so many pro spots, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, we played against them and we would practice them. And it was always good back and forth just because it's kind of that it was like a revival of the old rivalry because, you know, most of the guys on this new rhythm were old rhythm guys and the New York Outlaw guys were basically old power surge players. And it was always Outlaws rhythm versus power surge
Yeah,
in AXPL. That was always first and second. So, you know, now we have this like scrimmage partner in our local Syracuse or Rochester, Albany area that's like it's back. Like you like these guys, you're friends, you hang out with them afterwards, but on the field you hate these guys.
Oh yeah.
Because they're the bunch of loudmouth Eastern New York, you know, down to fight cheaters. They're good. You have to respect them, but they're kind of like that rough around the edge bunch of brawlers, you know?
Oh yeah. It's our area. It breeds it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's strange. Your area, I'd say, well, where are you specifically from again?
We're from Long Island, so like Southern New York.
Yeah, I would say your area, but it stems up a little bit. It's like your area and where it touches New Jersey and then up to like the edge of Albany. There's like that stretch, that little latitudinal 10 degrees of range where there's something in the water, or maybe it's because it gets so, you know,
I don't
cold.
know. But it's not even all of Long Island. So like Montauk and stuff, that don't count. They're soft out there. They don't got it. But the other parts closer to the city, yeah, man. And like, yeah, New Jersey, just like, I don't know, man. And we all play together. Everyone's got it.
Yeah, would you say maybe it's because all of the traffic and high cost of living, everybody's just a little bit more like you just eventually lose it. You get off of me, like get away from me, other people.
Dude, the traffic is so bad. Like that was the one thing. Like it was funny. I was thinking about this. Like our first one was like right before COVID got huge, but I worked all throughout COVID. It didn't affect my job. Traffic non-existent. It was beautiful. I was the only person on the road. I loved every second of it.
Perfect.
And yeah, it's like back up here. It's opening back up again. I think I saw 3 car accidents today. Waldo, you're probably doing well, selling some insurance.
Yeah, man.
I forgot that's what the other thing you. Yeah. Good for you. I mean, hey, business is back.
Yeah, right. But so this team formed, and there's a little bit of rivalry. So what kind of goes on next?
So yeah, there's this rivalry, and I don't think we ever actually played each other at events, but we would always be our warm-up partners on the layouts. And I remember there was even this one event where New York Outlaws didn't get their new jerseys yet. So after we'd finish our matches, we'd give them all of our rhythm jerseys, and they'd flip them inside out. And I kid you not, there's this semi-pro team on the field just with, you know, when you flip a jersey inside out, all you see is all the stains and the old paint head, the white. So you just have this crappy looking team out there looking all sorts of weird. You know, the Hussein brothers have their leopard print headbands on. And if you were to just walk over to the semi-pro field and not be able to tell who these guys are, you'd be like, who is this scrub team on the semi-pro field? But then they were just beating people up. So it's like, all right, well, they're good. And eventually it came around to the 4th event that season was West Coast Open. It was the last one still in Riverside, California. And I, of course, I'm trying to go to every event. Like I'm one of those people who drives to every PSP and NPPL event at the time. Like it doesn't matter where it is. I like the road trip.
Yeah.
So, I was down to go. But the Canadian guys, not hating on them, but for them, I guess, I don't know if they just took too long to look at the flights, but from their area in Toronto, it was going to be, they were all like, man, we do not want to pay the 700 something dollars to play this event. And, me and some of the American guys in our eyes, it's like, dude, that's bullshit. I mean, everything else is covered. And regardless of how much it's going to be, if we miss even one event, we're not in the running for the series title anymore, because that's how close it is. We saw that this previous season, Tauntauns won 3 events in a row, and then took a 4th, and they still didn't win the series title with 3 wins. Clearly the dominant team in the division, but they didn't get the pro title over AC Dallas because they missed that first event, and that's 100+ points that you miss out on.
Yeah.
So
no, you're so right.
Yeah. So, anyways, Canadian guys don't want to go. At this point, it's like, in my mind, well, the season's already a wash. Like, we built this team to be serious. It has all the right players. It has the best coach. It has funding, and we're just going to miss an event because you guys don't want to pay for flights. I mean, I guess we could try to win World Cup, but either way, we're screwed. So
no, that's weak, bro. I agree with you. That's kind of weak right there.
Yeah, and I already have this cool road trip set up where, like, I didn't have a flight booked, and now I'm mad that I'm missing a flight. But I hit up a bunch of guys at the time, I believe it was Boom, and I was like, hey, I'm looking to road trip out. I want to see the middle of the country again. I don't really want to fly. I'm looking to road trip out with somebody, and they were like, yeah, if you can get to us in Chicago, you can go with us. So I drove like the whatever it is, 10-ish hours from Buffalo to Chicago in my own car, parked at one of the Boom guys' house. He lived on a property right near their paintball field, and then drove with them across the middle of the country in like an SUV with a U-Haul trailer with like 50 gear bags in it. Like, we basically took all of the Boom Camp's gear bags, like Boom, and I think it was Project Mayhem. Like, so it's a big camp of teams, and they were like, the team owner was cool. They were like, hey, if you guys are willing to drive the SUV with a U-Haul trailer with all the bags, they're doing the math, and they're like, this is $50 per bag. It would be cheaper to pay for the gas and let 4 people drive so they could switch back and forth and get it there. So it was a free trip for me. All I'd do is be willing to do my shift driving, and I'm down for that. And like, she even gave us a company credit card and was like, your food the whole way is covered. Anybody who's driving, cover your own iced coffee so you can stay awake, blah, blah, blah. So, we took our time. Like, we left 3 days before the trip, and we just slow and steady cruise through the country, scenic detours, looking at weird stuff out in the middle of the country, and, eating for free the whole way, sleeping at the occasional nice hotel. And have you guys ever done that drive across the middle of the country?
No, my cousin did a cross-country drive to California and then drove back, and he said it was awesome.
It's pretty sweet, man. It's something I feel like everyone in this country should check off their bucket list.
It's nice.
Especially now, since, typically I like to vacation to other countries or like find a paintball tournament and then backpack around that. But if we can't travel for a while, for a year, like, do the rental RV thing or whatever and drive around and see this country, because there's not a lot of places in the world where the landscape changes so much. You get the ocean, and then rivers and lakes, and then flat farmland and rolling hills, and then like that very reddish, like Utah type landscape, and then the Rocky Mountains, and then there's just a little bit of everything. And there's weird stuff too. Like, I've done it 6 times now, and depending on the route you take, like the farthest north one is terrible, especially in the winter, just because there's about 1,800 miles straight from Chicago to, I want to say, Reno-ish, or like at least the mountain pass, where it's just flat. Like, you can just see 100 miles out ahead of you, and it's just nothing but cornfields. And in the winter, if you're driving that, all the cornfields are pressed flat, and there's like 100-mile-per-hour wind carrying like walls of snow. And if you're not right behind like a semi in front of you and following the brake lights, you can't see anything. So you're just driving at like 30 miles an hour, hoping you don't spin out on like a black ice patch for just endlessly into the black abyss, and time is dragging.
That's nuts. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that either. I'm sure like North Dakota and all that stuff in the wintertime, the snow has got to be insane.
North Dakota, Wyoming,
Yeah.
any of those big square-shaped states are just miserable. There's about 7 people out there.
Uh-huh. And God forbid you do break down or something like that. What's the next house? Like fucking 30 miles?
Yeah. Oh, more than that. There's a
My
particular
man.
area on that road where you see the sign and it's like probably only 100 yards before this gas station and it says last service area 150 miles.
Jeez.
So yeah, like you have to very quickly like look down, check your gas, and realize to be like, yep, I may as well. My rule of
Yeah.
thumb is I just every time I hit half tank, I fill up. I don't want to like get down to that quarter and then have that stressful hour where you're like, are we gonna make it? We're
Yeah.
coasting on fumes, like starting to freak out. There's no service out there. It's because I've had that happen too many times and it's
Yeah.
scary as shit. Like even if you don't die, even in the winter, if you have water and blankets in your car and you could, something like that, because you don't have gas to run your heat, like you just know you're going to be sitting there for like 6+ hours till a tow truck gets out there from the nearest city
Right.
to give you gas or pull you out of the snowbank or whatever. And yeah, like funny side story on that. Like this is going the northern way. I remember I was doing it one time in my Ford Taurus, so like a shitty
Nice.
front wheel drive car. And I'm like, just putting along between 2 semis, trying to keep up with them. But, it's scary when they go over 30 because you're starting to get like a little bit of the wiggles.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to go any faster than that either, even though it's like I'm looking at my thing and going at this speed. If I don't start cutting down time, it's going to take 56 hours. But after you pass enough cars in the ditch, you're just like, it's better than that. And
Yeah.
I
It
would
ain't worth it.
people in semis can go a little faster. People in like Hummers or big 4x4 cars are
Yeah, because they're
okay.
heavier.
Yeah, it's heavier. They have all-wheel drive. They have big treaded tires. But I'd see the occasional impatient person pass me in like a Prius or something like that at like 40 or 50. Like they're not flying. They're not doing 80. But I'd see them pass me, and then not but 10 minutes later, I'd see that same blue Prius spun off in the ditch facing the wrong way with their hazards blinking and
Uh,
just drive by them knowing there's nothing I can do about it. Like I'm not pulling out. And so
yeah.
I probably I lost count at 200 cars off the road,
Jeez.
stuck in snowbanks. Like they're probably not even totaled because it's just flat land, but
Right.
they're off the road stuck, in just
Yeah.
this big snow drift. And I remember I pulled into this gas station before, like I finally get through all the flatland. I pull in this gas station before the like the Rocky Mountains. I guess there's that pass on. I want to say it's Highway 5, maybe, or the 66 or whatever it is, but it's like the main trucking route that comes from the north and cuts through the mountains, and then you
Okay.
come down into Reno. And I pull into the last gas station at a half a tank, and I was like, I'm gonna get gas real quick and get more washer fluid so I can get the ice off my windows, whatever.
Hmm.
And man, it was funny because it was almost like that. You guys watch South Park?
Oh yeah.
Little bit. So you remember there's that in the early episodes where they're doing like their Stan's trying to learn how to ski, and they have that guy in the convenience store who's like, "Oh, that pass? You don't want to go up that road."
Yeah.
You remember that guy? He's like, "You don't want to go up there. Nobody survives that road."
Yeah.
So
No, iconic episode. He pizza when he was supposed to French fry.
yes, yes. So I met that guy basically, like the real life, inspiration of that dude. You're out in the middle of nowhere with tiny little cow towns with like 7 people, and the one guy owns the gas station, and they're all countryish and stuff. And so I pull into that stop, and he just looks outside my window or out his window and sees a Ford Taurus sitting at the pump, and he's like, "Oh, is that what you're driving?" And I was like, "Yeah." You think it's the middle of winter. Like, is there a safest way to get through here? And he's like, you got to go through the pass. You have to go through it. Otherwise, you got to go back and south and then go over. And I was like, man, I don't want to add that much extra time.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because it was like he was putting the fear in my head. He's like, you really don't want to go that road. Like, do you have chains? I was like, no. And he's like, you don't want to go up there. And I was like, I got to do it, man. I pumped up and then putted through the mountain pass at like 10 miles an hour. And yeah, that was terrifying. Like anytime you're going downhill, the car is like almost spinning out. Going uphill, I realize if I don't keep my speed, I'm not going to have, if I
Traction.
stop at all, I'm not going to be able to get going on this icy road going up the gradient.
Yep.
So craziest drive of my life to get across
Yeah.
for that.
Meanwhile, going downhill, if you go too fast, you're going to start to spin out. So you're like, but you can't hit the brakes because then you're definitely going to spin out.
Literally nothing you can do but just sit there and pray and be like, universe, if you're there with me, if you are on my side, just don't let anything happen to me. Just let me get there and I'll be a better person. I'll repent. And I'll change my ways. Yeah. I'll call my mom more. Just let me get there, man. So yeah, that was the drive there in the winter. But anyways, so I have my drive there for this summer with Boom Guys. It's gonna be a sweet ride. But I don't have a team to go there with now with Rhythm. And I remember the Husseins reached out to me. I've known these guys as like friendly rivals since we were all like 12 or 13 years old, playing in our little regional leagues. And they were like, "Oh, Joey B, why isn't Rhythm going?" And I was like, "I don't know. The Canadians are kind of all being turds." And he's like, I think I got sad a good amount the last event. And he was like, "Oh, well, honestly, I don't know why they sat you last event. You're kind of underrated, but you could jump in with us. We could use another like role player guy." And so I was like, all right, cool. And so I did the planned road trip, had a great time, got to the event, jumped in with the New York Outlaws guys. I think they had like 7 of them at the time, and I was their 8th, and I was going to be one of their back players in the pocket. And at the time, that was kind of what they needed because Outlaws, I mean, Extreme, they still are pretty aggressive right now, but at least they've toned back. Like they have some role players. But at the time, they were all aggressive. Like every one of them, in my eyes, was basically a front guy. And some of them were just front guys stuck in the back center. So it's like, yeah, you have gun skills and you can live back there, but if your mentality is always go, 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 or attack or look for kills, well, then you're not like disciplined enough to just stay on a job and do the boring stuff.
Right.
So, they played their first point, and I forget who was playing in their 3 spot, but he didn't do so hot. And then I filled in with them next point and like held the Dorito side the entire game and eventually filled down it while containing their front guy the whole game. And they just spun me every point after that. Like I just became like kind of their starting back center guy.
Yeah, you proved yourself right there in that one point.
Pretty much. And they're a team where they don't really, even still right now, like they don't really care about, there's no politics or anything like that. They want to play to win. The Husseins are hyper competitive, so they don't care if you missed a practice or not. If you're outplaying the other guy in his spot, even though he was at 2 practices, you were at 1, they might have been mad at you for missing it, but they're going to play who they need to play to win. So I started getting played with them, and then that was supposed to be it. It was supposed to be, guest with these guys, help them out a little bit, have a good time, and get a team to play with, and then go back to Rhythm for World Cup. So I think we went to Sunday and got knocked out like first round that event. It wasn't a great event, honestly. It was like 2-2, barely squeaking in, if I recall. And then we get home and, we're talking about practices back with Syracuse Rhythm. And the Canadian guys, even though they missed that event with us, they're like, we kind of just want to do our own thing. We don't really want to keep traveling through the border to practice with the American line. And it was just like they didn't really care too much about all the perks of like the sponsorship and, having Buddy as a coach. And some of those guys, have it more made than a lot of us American guys did. Like, they have money or whatever. They have good jobs already, established careers, their own businesses. So I think they just didn't want the hassle of their long drives and going through the borders and customs. So they were like, we're just going to play the 5 of us and grab their 6th kid, young Brad Baldwin, who ended up playing on Distortion with them. And we're just going to make our own 6-man team and play World Cup. And so once again, it left me and the other 5 American dudes like, okay, once again, we don't really have enough to like field a full squad. Like we could go and have no substitutes whatsoever, no pit crew, no nothing, but it's going to suck. And then
That's tough.
Yeah. And Buddy's one of those guys who, if it's not taken seriously, if everything doesn't look and feel professional, he's not going to half-ass it because then he has his name on it. So he's like, all right, well, I guess it is what it is. We're done. And now I'd already played with New York, and they're like, all right, well, if Rhythm's done, you can feel free to just stay with us. We like the way you play with us. So then I hopped on to New York, and if there's any questions you want to know about the inside of New York Extreme, because they were Outlaws back then because it was a Trade My Gun team, but then it is New York Extreme already. Now's your chance. That's a fun group of, great characters, great team, awesome dynamic, awesome people. But yeah, I have endless stories for that. I just need direction.
Yeah, man. I mean, hopefully they come up along the way. So, yeah, like what was your first event with them after obviously you said the West Coast Open?
Yeah,
Like
so
a filler.
Well, then I played World Cup with them, and World Cup was crazy to say the least because I've never had a ton of money, but especially at this particular time, I was very, very broke. Like coming up through all the way through to like until I moved California, there's been plenty of times where I've had 2 or 3 jobs, but I'm just spending it all to play paintball twice a weekend, every weekend. And in D1 and semi-pro, you're playing as much as pros do, but it's not all covered. So
No.
I'm used to just spending a ton of money on practice paint, 4 cases a day, 2 days in a row, spending on traveling to drive to most events. I'm driving to all 5 NPPLs, all 5 PSPs, driving up to Canada for CXBL. I was playing college paintball before this, but obviously I've been done for a year or two. And back then, until I was ranked too high points-wise, I was still playing the regional leagues like what would it be after like RMXL in Binghamton. What's another one? USPA. That was that other full X-Ball league that took over throughout the Northeast area. So I'm playing like a lot of leagues still, and all my money is just, being put in to get as much experience as you can. You're still chasing the pro dream.
Yeah, just trying to play.
Yeah, there's no part of me that is trying to save for the future. There's no part of me that is trying to spend money on things other than paintball in the moment. So I don't have a nice car. I live in the crappiest apartment there is near Niagara Falls for like $325 a month. Eventually, I start renting a like horrible broken apart house. Another one, not the Auburn one, but in like the edge of Niagara Falls in Buffalo. I was renting like a house for $300 a month. And
That's
if
wild.
that tells you the area. And all my neighbors are like crackheads and alcoholics. I live next to like 3 bars. It's a terrible area. So the point of all that is I am not used to anything but spending money on paintball. And what little I have left is paying my bills and getting me like, ramen or whatever. Like, so I come out to this New York.
Eggs and bread.
Eggs and bread,
dude.
I'm still doing that. When I came back to New York, nothing changed. I have a little more money and I can like take a drive to my parents and eat a good meal. But I'm still like, hey, this money first for paintball, and then whatever I can afford, I'll make it work. And I come out of this New York Extreme team, Outlaws at the time, and if anybody knows these guys, a lot of them have like family money and like 20 businesses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're the best people on earth because it's not like they're just flashy with it or like that. Like they want to spend it and have a good time and party, and they want to bring their friends with them. So, World Cup, my second event with Extreme, is crazy because we have a good event. We go to Sunday, but what I remember about that event was we went down there and then we stayed like 3 extra days, and we all took like a cool fancy tour bus down to Miami, and we were like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, we're all down to do like some days on the beach in Miami. And the whole team is like, yeah, let's get a cheap hotel. And the Husseins are like, no, we don't do cheap. No hotel. We're like, what do you want to do? And they're like, we want to get the Fountain Blue, which if you know about the Fountain Blue is like the #1 resort hotel in Miami, the #2 resort hotel in the whole country, including like Vegas.
Jeez.
Damn.
And we walk in and they're like, we want the presidential suite, top floor. And we're like, for 3 days? What? this thing is like $2,800 a night. It's
I'm gonna say you just
insane.
spent my year's salary in 3 days, dude.
Yeah. So, they're cool with it. And there's like one or two other guys that are okay with it. And like me and Harrison and Pat Kraft and some of these guys are like, yeah, man, we have enough extra money. We were planning to throw down, on like $100 a night place split evenly. And they were like, it's all good, man. Just throw what you were going to throw. Throw your, 10, $20 a night. We were like, all right. And they just covered the rest. And it's like room service every night, bottle service wherever we go to, just wiling out, like having a great time. Just absolutely like living this crazy, lavish life where, if you just had a few drinks at like a steakhouse or something like that, you're not going to get an Uber. Instead, they're going to call like a limo to get us back to the hotels.
Yeah, they're
So,
living life, man. They're living life.
yeah, and I had never been exposed to anything like this before. Like I went from, broke on the grind, struggling, starving artist, semi-pro player to this team that's like, man, these guys are actually like living that glamorous pro lifestyle almost. And yeah, I'm still forever thankful for that experience because it was like that for the whole next year. I played the whole next season with New York Outlaws, and it was just I still haven't had really another team owner or bunch of guys that were that cool and that just what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Generous
like
with their money.
Generous, I guess you could say. Yeah, yeah. I was looking for even generous doesn't quite describe it because generous is like when you're willing to share and give to people, but with these guys, it's just like no hold there's just no holding back with like the experience, you know what I mean? Like whatever the best version of that particular event weekend you can picture, that's what it was going to be. And
Yeah. It's not
yeah,
dependent on money. It's like a we thing. It was like, hey, we're gonna go here and we are gonna have a good time. And don't worry, we have all this money. Don't worry about you.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it really, yeah, it felt like you were all this single cohesive unit. Like we weren't the most organized team and we weren't the best team yet, even though we were always like a top eight some semi-pro team. But it just it really felt like family, and it's unfortunate that things always work out for a reason, but it's still one of those teams where I'm like, man, I wonder if I would have stuck around if there's the butterfly effect, if that would have changed things in the course of their or my like coming future. But like, what if I would have stuck around and things would have went the same and they would have still got offered that pro spot because 4 teams moved up, and
Right.
then I would have been playing with them. And it's like the one other team in my head where it's like, man, if for whatever reason, DMG just decided to throw in the towel, or everybody died in car accidents, or whatever crazy, experience inserted into that sentence. If that happened, New York is like that other pro team who it's like, I would love to play with those guys again. And it
Yeah.
sucks you can't play with both of them. I can't be on both teams right now, but there was never like a doubt in my mind that was not going to continue being like family. And whenever I see those guys at events, it's still like that, where you just pick up right where you left off, even though I don't live with near them anymore. And we all talk about it, like, what if that happened again, and this and that. Get the band back together.
Right.
But yeah, it was just it was like nothing else being with. I imagine it's kind of like what the guys on Houston Heat get, where you just experiences. There's no limit on them. Like you can just do what you want to do, rather than like, all right, well, is it in the budget, or is everybody down with it, or do we have old guys that have kids at the event and they don't want to go out? Like there was none of that. You're just all the same age with the same drive to play, and there's this like unlimited seeming budget, so you just do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy.
That's awesome. So, being that we're talking about NYX, what was like the biggest scruff or kerfuffle that you were a part of when you were on the team?
Oh man, I'll have to tell the Husseins to watch this particular episode because we were just talking about this on the phone the other week. Harris is organizing this event in Kentucky that I'm actually leaving for Wednesday. We have like a pro invite only event.
Okay, I was gonna say. So, let's talk about that for a second. We'll get back to the fight thing. So you know a lot about this. So tell us a little about what's going on there.
Yeah, I was going to fill you guys in this later. So we finally have something to look forward to now. It seemed like, shoot, I hope World Cup happens, but the last 2 weekends we've been practicing random blind layouts against Excessive and other semi-pro teams because next weekend there is a professional-only event. It's going to include, right now there's only 6 teams confirmed. There's NRG, LVL, New York, Trade My Gun, Aftermath, and then us flying over from the West Coast. So it's mostly East Coast teams, like 1 or 2 Midwest area teams. I don't know why Revo isn't going. They're an East Coast team. I don't know why ML Kings isn't driving up to Florida. I know why all the other teams aren't going, whether it's guys who were, afraid of the COVID thing, which is understandable. So a lot of the guys on, like, let's say Damage, for example, have kids and families. So it's a different type of pro team. They're in a different place than all of us young amateur pros. And then there's a lot of the upper echelon teams that are either too far away and don't want to spend their budget on it, or they just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they don't see a need to do it if it's not going towards series rankings. But, we're just dying to play. So either way, even though it was a far away thing, we were like, let's just go play this event, regardless of how many teams go up. So anyways, there's a team, it's going to be 6 prelim matches. You play every team once round robin, and then one of the teams, random draw, you'll play twice. And then even though there's 6 teams, there's going to be a semifinals and finals. So you'll play 8 matches to win this thing. I believe it's a small cash prize. Like, every team has to throw down X amount of money, which is mainly just to cover the refereeing staff and the facility that we're going to play at, which is in Paintball Asylum in Louisville, Kentucky.
Is it Asylum? I've heard really good things about that field.
Oh, Asylum is a beautiful field. I've never been there, but I've seen pictures and videos, and I believe it's fully turfed, but really, really nice facility. The guy who owns it is, does stuff well. He doesn't half-ass it. So
yeah, we've had a couple level guys on, and they've talked about how nice it is there.
Yeah, I saw you had a level guy somewhat recently, and yeah, I'm sure you did.
We had Justin Pelotti and Nick Carney were the 2 we had on.
Yep, gotcha. I actually don't know those guys. I mean, those are all dudes that were semi-pro and just moved up, so I haven't got a chance to really meet them or the NRG elite dudes or anything like that. But they all seem like good guys. They seem like they're all hardworking, and they seem like they have an owner who takes stuff dead serious and puts in what's needed to give the team a chance to be competitive in the pro, which they all proved it last event. Those guys, they each won at least a match, and they were bringing upper teams like Dynasty at least close games. So respect to them, and I look forward to playing against them finally. But yeah,
speak glowingly of their owner, Dave Pando. They say he's a great owner. So I think they'll probably be around for a bit.
I believe so. Yeah, I've heard Pando's. I've actually never met him either, but I've heard the name Pando for a few years now, and people tell me that's one of the best team owners in the sport. Like, he really takes care of his guys. So, yeah, I just look forward to seeing what they can do at this event, and I look forward to playing at this Asylum field. I've been through Kentucky before, and I can't say I have a lot of great things to say about Kentucky for the for the most. But if this field is a hidden treasure or a needle in the haystack of what is mostly just kind of the sticks, then I'm happy to visit and get out of California finally. So yeah, for anybody who wants to come by that area, even if you're in a few hours driving range and maybe it's another state, you're not in Kentucky, there will be a pro event that you can come watch next weekend. It's 2 days, Saturday, Sunday only. A lot of our teams will be there practicing the blind layout Friday. It's released that day. And
that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, so you're not practicing it for 2 weekends straight and learning all the bounce shots. Now it's kind of what team is going to develop the best strategy and win with it. So yeah, it's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, because we actually had Robbie from NYX a couple episodes ago, maybe like 4 or 5. And at the end, he was talking about going to Paintball Asylum, but he wasn't sure yet. And he said Harrison was talking. So it's good to know that's for sure definitely going on.
It is the real deal. I'm pumped for it. I got my flight booked a day early, and then I got it booked for Tuesday evening, so I can spend 2 days just like seeing what Louisville's about.
Hmm.
I don't honestly know how locked down it is right now with all this, but I've driven
Yeah.
through Louisville, but I've never spent time there.
It's supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be really nice.
Yeah, I think that is one of the nicer cities.
Mhm.
But anyways, I forget how we tangented off to that.
Oh, I
Here you go.
want to know the biggest fight or scuffle you were a part of with NYX. I'm sure there was a
Yeah,
couple. You don't have to tell us all, but maybe your favorite.
for sure. Yeah, so I'll bring this one up to the Husseins because so I'm talking to Harris about this event and getting all the details in our hotels. And then we always bring up this inside joke. The first event that I was really with them, not the guesting event, but World Cup,
Hmm.
we have the layout broken down. We've been playing it at practice, but there's an argument between me and Arslan Hussein about who's going to play this certain Aztec on the Dorito side that's called the Lincoln. It's our code for it.
Right.
So all weekend, everybody hears this banter about I should be in the Lincoln. I should be, and it wasn't that I thought I was better than him or he thought he was better than me, but Arslan wanted to play the front spot on this field, and he wanted me to play as the back guy, but he wanted me to go out to the corner as the back guy. And if you know basic paintball, if you're in a corner on the Dorito side and you're looking at a bunch of like kind of like zigzagging staggered Doritos, you can shoot the wire all game and you're not really actually doing anything because a smart Dorito player will just make highway bumps or like
Right.
sneaking out. So you'll shoot 10 pods down the wire the whole game, hold the other corner in, and basically you're wasting your time because all of a sudden you see him snap out at you with the 50 Dorito. He got there either way.
Right.
So I wanted to play the contained spot, like as the back guy, and follow Arslan because that's kind of the role I always play. And if you played the Lincoln, which was this inset Aztec, it's the first Aztec in the pocket, like out towards the Dorito way, you could shoot every single gap between all the Doritos. So even if you took one bump, you could still stop the next one and the next one and the next one. And
Right.
for me, that's like my favorite kind of anchor bunker. Like you're not going to get to the 50 if I have 5 chances to stop you with
Right.
lanes of paint.
Hmm.
But he'll get argumentative about it. But Arslan's not the fastest guy. He's a pretty big dude. If you ever see either of the Husseins, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like they're like fat guys or out of shape, but they're big guys. They're 6 foot plus, and
Mhm.
they're not exactly lean. So Arslan wanted to play short to the Lincoln, and then when I make it out to the corner, then he's gonna like underfill and bump underneath the lanes. So he's gonna use it to insert, so he never risks getting shot off break. He's never the type of guy who's gonna run Dorito 2 off break because he's not a tiny little fast Rosati type guy. So
Yeah.
he wants to play front, but he wants to play it from the safe spot off the break and send me out to a bunker. That way there's not 2 of us hiding in one Aztec where I'm not going to be able to do anything. So the whole event we're arguing about this. And I'm getting furious because we're losing points because people are flying up the Dorito side on us. And yeah, he's making up the Dorito side too, but their guys are just coming up the field and shooting guys out of the back of the snake. So we lose points and matches off of this. And after every match, there's a half-hour screaming match about why I should be in the Lincoln or why he feels he should be in the Lincoln. And then we'll be at dinner and we're like all trying to let it go. And Harris, who like likes to throw gas on the fire, will be like, wait, which one of you guys should be in the Lincoln? And he'll start to argue back up out of nowhere. So yeah, that was super annoying. But I think the even worse one was like, and it wasn't like really an argument, but there was this event in Dallas which we did really well at somehow. We went 4-0 in prelims, but Harris was not playing this good this event, and he's one of those guys who he wants to be on the field every single point. Whether he's playing good or bad. If he's playing bad, he wants the chance to like fix it, and get his momentum going.
Right.
If playing good, of course, we'd want to keep him on the field. So he's our snake front guy this event. It's super, super muddy, and he's not the fastest guy. So he keeps getting shot off break, running out wide to the corner or the God bunker. So after a few times, we're like, all right, let's sit Harris and put Harrison in. And he goes, no, I'm going to play the 2. We're like, but the guy who's playing the 2, I think it was Frankie Spinelli at the time, is playing it really good. And he's like, I don't care, I'm playing the 2. And he just won't sit himself. And he's kind of partially the owner of the team, so
Team.
he's
Yeah.
not going to sit himself. Even there's penalties all over him, and he's clearly playing a bad match, he's not going to sit himself. So he switches him with Frankie. Now Frankie's the one who's playing the 2. And then I don't know how, but he's like catching the first ball downfield and he's getting shot off break going to the first Aztec out on Snake side. So now he's dying as the 2. And two or 3 points of that happens. And he's like, I'm going to play the 3. And we're like, Harris, you never play the back center. You're an attacker. And I'm playing the back center and I'm playing good. I'm shooting their Snake players off break every single point, trying to trudge out in the mud. And he's like, I'm going to play a 3. Joey, you play a 2. So now Frankie's the 1. I'm the 2. Harris is back in the 3. And our spots just keep rotating. And Harris is now dying and getting penalties out of the back center. It's like this little pin, and he's gunfighting people in like a lane blocker in the back center. He's dying out of that. And somehow we're still winning matches and points on like 3-on-5s between like me, Patrick, and Arslan, and getting through matches somehow or other. And these arguments are just continuing to persist about like, dude, you're not playing good in any spot. What are you going to go play the Dorito front now and sit Patrick Kraft, and then you're going to sit your brother out of the Dorito too? Like, if you're not playing well, it doesn't mean find a spot you're going to play well. It means let's sit you this event. Like, be a team player. And it just wasn't happening. And that was honestly kind of what led to me leaving Extreme. I think they're better about it now. And Harris is a really good player. Like, he asserts his will on people, but it got to this point by the end of the year where we were always in semifinals. And we were even in Virginia Beach. We were in finals against Uprising. And if we would have won that match, we probably would have won the pro spot instead of Uprising. Like, we were probably 4 points behind them in the series standing. So all we had to do was win that tournament and then have a good World Cup, like not just shit the bed. And our points from being like consistent would have probably won us the pro spot. But I was just able to like kind of step back and see things objectively. And I'm like, man, time and time again, we're not losing because we're getting outplayed by Distortion or Uprising or DMG. We're losing because we're getting to like top 4. And then there's just like this level of ego on the team that's holding us back, where it's like all we have to do is keep playing whoever's playing hot or sit who's playing bad, because we have enough depth on the team, and we're going to get through these tough, tighter games. And we wouldn't, and then we'd lose because people are being switched around or because of penalties. And that was just kind of my last straw, because like I was still that guy who was going broke trying to go pro. And it's like, man, if I'm not going to go, I'll try to go pro with a team. I want to go pro with a team and like become part of a family. But if I'm part of this team where I can see the glass ceiling and it's just like I'm bumping against it over and over like a fly and I can't get through it, I feel like at that point it's easier for me to go do it myself, and I'll go try out somewhere. So yeah, that was basically why I left New York Extreme at the time.
Did Frank leave with you also? Sorry to jump in there, Trav. When did Frank? Because Frankie's from Long Island also.
Mm-hmm.
Frankie, I don't think he left right then and there. I think he left at the beginning of the next season. Honestly, I can't remember if he played he didn't play another full season with them. And I remember little by little, other people started to have the same frustrations. Like Extreme brought in Keith DeVitt, Benny Carroll, a number of other good veterans to kind of like fill the roles of guys stepping out. But when I left and just said, man, we're holding ourselves back here. Other teams aren't beating us. We're beating ourselves because we're just, so-and-so's playing hot, and then we're sitting him to get somebody else in that feels like they deserve play time. And we've all talked about it since then, and they know it's water under the bridge, and now they became a pro team that goes to Sunday. So they've fixed a lot of stuff. They've brought in coaches, but at the time, just being player coached and having a lot of, talented guys on the team with egos, like including myself, we're all, hardcore paintball players because we've all been playing D1 for a while and 10 plus years of national experience. But there's not a main chief there with the clipboard to like be the final say. So it's just us versus us. And eventually I was like, I think we're going to beat most teams other than the other top 4s consistently, just because we have a lot of really good players. But I don't think we're going to ever beat these other top 4 teams because we don't have a coach saying, you're sitting, you're not playing good. You know what I mean? There's nobody from the outside who can point it out. So eventually I was like, I got to try to find something new. And then I think Frankie left, Harrison left, Greg Horotzek left, a few other guys left. And then another year went by, and then the new guys who came on, like Benny Carroll and Keith DeVitt left. So little by little, it cut back down to their original 5 or 6 guys from that first off season of New York Outlaws playing the Winter Indoor League when they kind of fused the team together. And, you know, it once again, it all happens for reasons because most everybody who left ended up going to pro teams. Like Harrison and Greg went to Thunder.
Right.
You know, Keith DeVitt went to when he left
Ironman.
Ironman, yeah.
And now I think he's on the Hurricanes.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, everybody went to where they had to go in the long run, and then New York Extreme, through sheer will and tenacity and undoubtedly hard work, they became a pro team. Just in ways that we wouldn't have all seen, you know, through weird roster changes and weird stuff. So, yeah, a weird story.
Yeah, but hey, they made it. So I mean, good on them. So, I guess before we're going to anything else, because I know we're going to talk about this for a while. I guess we're up to the point now where you're on DMG now. So tell us how that whole thing came to be, and about your time that you've had on there.
There's a chapter in between there that we missed that's kind of important. Tampa Bay Damage.
Yeah, Damage, man.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
People forget.
Jesus, that's right. So let's talk about Damage. Yes.
This is a fun one. It was 2 different times in Florida. 1 second, I can dismiss this notification. Okay, so yeah, so at the end of that season, I'm just frustrated because I've been on the Sunday court field every event, and I'm playing as hard as I can. You know, both weekends I'm playing other events for more experience, and I'm surrounded by all these good guys. Like all the pieces of the puzzle are there, but I'm just hitting this invisible ceiling that isn't letting me progress into pro with these guys. So I got this weird opportunity to play with like a lot of my friends on DMG who I had been friends with for a while now because, you know, Sunday night, a lot of the New York Extreme guys would fly home. They had work or whatever. And so I would go out to players parties with DMG guys. And then in the off season, a lot of times I'd get out of snowy Buffalo and I'd go to either music festivals or hike or camp with my buddies on DMG. So it had been like a long time coming where, you know, we would talk about it like, man, you know, good players, good teams. We like each other. There's chemistry. We like the same things off the field. We're all into like, you know, EDM music and stuff like that. And I'd always said I always wanted to live in California. So they would kind of like throw that carrot out in front of me and be like, you want to come and live in NorCal and get out of the snow? And, you know, I had such a good deal with NYX and I'm living this cool, lavish lifestyle and I'm playing with people that I really, really love that it's like, man, you know, I would love to play with you guys, but you know why? Like I'm getting, you know, treated over here like somebody who gets pulled out of the gutter and finally, you know, like has luxuries and I'm playing every point for them and we're generally ranking pretty well. And these guys are all a lot of fun. You know, I love hanging out with them all. I love staying in their area for the weekends. So until there's a reason to leave, I'm not just going to leave it. But eventually I got kind of sick of it. And I was talking to some of the guys and 1 or 2 other guys that wanted to start this new team in California. And nobody would actually know about this team, but there was about to be this semi-pro team with funding behind it called Sacramento Oak Tribe. And well, I guess it would be Oakland Oak Tribe because it'd be Oakland Tribe. Yeah, something like that. I forget the full name of it, but it was going to be the Tribe. And, you know, we had all these ideas about like cool, like almost like sacred geometry-esque jerseys and just having like this very tribe culture where we just would all like rent a home together and live together and, you know, work out together and just do everything together because we all talked about how the reason that some of those teams became so dominant back in the day, like Dynasty or Trauma, was because you heard they all lived together. You heard
Right.
about the trauma house with like 10 of those dudes. You
Mhm.
heard about a lot of the dynasty guys, like 4 or 5 at a time, being roommates, and the other ones lived nearby down the block. And so in our heads, we were all like, I feel like that's the secret. Like we could be a good semi-pro team just playing, in the DMG camp. But if a bunch of us just like, figure out ways to like live with each other and work with each other and all of this, we're going to become so like clicked, mentally and on the same page and so much chemistry through communicating with each other all the time that it's going to transfer to better communication and working together on the field. So I was like, okay, I feel like this is worth leaving NYX4 finally. And it was supposed to be like a fully free ride for me. So I was like, all right, cool. So I drive across the country. And this was actually that sketchy winter trip. This is like the end of 2014. I drive across the country in the middle of winter, like right after New Year's, in the most horrible blizzard snowstorm I've ever seen for like 5 days straight. And I get across and start playing with this particular group. It's like a couple of the DMG guys who are, they're kind of toying with the idea of leaving the team anyways, and playing with this other like 2 guys. And they were like, yeah, well, we get you for our back center guy. And they were all like really good, either snake side or Dorito players. They're like, we could do this, and there'll be funding and everything. And I get there, and it's not really my right to talk about the exact reasons why it wasn't going to work out. It's just stuff that it's water under the bridge now. But basically, when I got there, you're told all this kind of this stuff to get you excited about it and like lure you in, and then once you're there, people just figure, all right, well, he's already moved here and committed, so he's going to do it. But I just saw within that first month that it wasn't going to be that deal. Like I wasn't going to get paid to play with this team. I had kind of been sold a little bit of a, you know, it
Bad
was
goods.
it was exaggerated. Yeah, I was,
The
yeah,
Fire
I was
Festive paintball teams, it sounds like.
exactly. That's a good wording of it. It was like a lot of just exciting wording and like just stuff to get you wowed and be like, yeah, I could really see doing this. Like I believed in the idea. You know what I mean? Like the idea of being a team on and off the field and hearing there was a budget behind it that actually wasn't going to be there. That was kind of the part that I was sold on, that seemed like it would be worthwhile to try this new idea of a team, but it was a pipe dream. So the weird thing happened where I just drive across the country, barely survived this horrible snowstorm drive, just like, white knuckling it. And I get there and I see after a few weeks that this is just not going to be what I thought it was going to be. And a couple of the DMG guys are like, man, we made a mistake. Like we clearly made a mistake. I don't know what we're going to do about this, but at least they can talk to DMG and get back in on it. Like those guys eventually are going to forgive him and go, yeah, well, you didn't leave in the middle of the season. You left after World Cup. So I guess technically no harm, no foul. You'll be back in time for the first event. And now I'm sitting here kind of like screwed, in another area. I can play with DMG, but that's not why I moved there. And it would have probably been cool to join them back then. They became a dominant semi-pro team the next 2 years, obviously, barely missing a pro spot the next year at PC Katana, and then getting the pro spot the next year with 4 to 5 wins. So it would have been cool to be part of that, but I didn't move there for that, and I didn't have the money to spend to play with a semi-pro team. So I'm like freaking out, and I decided for some reason one day to call up my buddy Kyle Berry, who played with me on New York Outlaws and then went to Tampa Bay Damage. And he went there during that first year of their rebuild when they became like a Mac Dev team. They lost all their big money guys except for, the Edwards brothers and Chad Bougier. And they had like a bunch of new guys. They had like Kyle, Mikey Waring, CeeLo. So this is all like their first year that's went by.
Right.
So at this time, I was already a year in with them. And I'm just calling him like, man, I don't know what to do, dude. Do I go back to New York? Do I, I'm just spitballing ideas. And Kyle, I'll always be grateful to Kyle for this because he was like, dude, I can't guarantee you a spot on Damage, but I can talk to the guys and see what they think. And I was like, all right, well, that'd be cool. And I just try to go to sleep that night, like just miserable because I'm like couch surfing at a friend's, trying to figure out how I'm going to like find a job, find an apartment, what team I'm going to play with for the next year. And if I just set myself back a year for my road to pro, and that's the only thing on my mind at the time is like, did I just screw myself? Should I have just stayed with New York and maybe we'd win the pro spot next year? And, I'm very single track minded at the time of like, things are making me lose sleep if I feel like they affected my overall time to get there because I'm already like, 24, 25 years old and time is ticking. And most people are pro by then in pro paintball. You don't really get 30-year-old dudes coming in anymore. So
right. And now you're stuck in your own head and your own thoughts, just driving yourself crazy.
Just spiraling. Yeah, I remember I went out for drinks with the couple of guys that I was supposed to play with, and I felt like I had a meltdown that night, and I just couldn't sleep the rest of that night. Probably because I'm a little drunk. I'm like stuck in my head. I'm going through my emotions, and I'm like, man, I just ruined my whole life, and this is not going to lead to where I thought it was going to lead to. Even though I just spent every dollar and put everything I owned into this car to get me across the country, knowing that it had to get me here. And then it was like, I hope everything works out. So, yeah, I remember I got the call back the next day from Kyle, and he's like, so I talked to the guys, and, they've been watching you the past few years because I had that tryout that we talked about last time. And, they knew I was a good paintball player, but now they see someone who looks like a more disciplined, serious paintball player. Back then you could say you want to play pro, but if you're 250 pounds and not really doing anything about it, to them, it's just like, you're good, but we can't pick you up. But now it's been a few seasons of playing semi-pro. I've been constantly at least on the Sunday field, if not on the center court, and I'm 70 pounds leaner and a lot faster. So,
you're looking good.
Clearly I'm athletic, and I've shown that I've like started to gain that like in-game experience at a higher level, and I'm like kind of the guy. Like I'm like becoming. You have to be like the dude on each team to get looked at. If you're on the bench the whole time, pro teams aren't looking at you, but they will be looking at the plays every point starter of a semi-pro team. And I've been on that on Static and 810 and Rhythm, except for one event, and then Outlaws. Kyle's like, basically, I can't guarantee you a spot, but if you move here, like they would consider you. You just got to prove why you can outplay the rest of these guys that are on the semi-pro damage, because at the time they had built this big camp semi-pro down to D5. So he's like, come in your spot. And I was like, all right, well, how do I do that? And he's like, come to Florida. I got an extra bedroom. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. You can have the extra bedroom. I'll give you a couple months rent free to get up on your feet. And yeah, man, come to Florida. And I know California's cool, but the grass is green over here in Florida. It's sunny every day. Fort Myers Beach, and we can drive to practice together, and I'll make sure to try to get you on my team, which this is Kyle speaking damage. And I was like, all right. And I kid you not, that was like, I'm talking to him that morning. I hung out with my friends and told them all that day, packed everything neatly back into the trunk of the Ford Taurus, and woke up the next day, rested at like 7 a.m. and started the drive to Florida from Northern California.
That's awesome. I love Kyle. I always have mad love and respect for Kyle. For, like, when we were just started this podcast, he was our third episode. In the really beginning, he helped us out a lot. So I'll always have like, I didn't know much about him until then, but I'll always have mad love for him from that.
That's good. Yeah, I was hoping you guys at least know him somewhat personal, because one thing anybody will say about Kyle is not only is he one of those guys who will just generally give most people the shirt off his back anyways, because he knows what it's like to struggle. He's told me about him and his family getting raised with, trying to buy and start their own restaurant, and then struggling to keep it afloat and going through all these troubles with every type of regulation or losing the place. And, so he's been in and out of like being stable and like having to help his parents pay bills. And it's just led to this really generous kind of Kyle Barry, where whether he has it or not, like he's down to help a friend or someone in need. But the other part about him that's even better is he has a heart for paintball like almost no other. He reminds me a lot of Tim Montresor in the way of Kyle wants to be the best he can be, and he wants to be a great pro player and stuff like that. But I hear him talk more about trying to make paintball into a sport because he's very business minded, a sport that like becomes ESPN worthy again. Then I hear him talk about like parts of the game, like how to play it differently or how to evolve and adapt his style. He wants to more adapt the presentation or the format of paintball that we present to the world so that it can become this thing that guys like us all actually make good money on, like an NFL player or something like that.
Yeah,
So
no, that's why he's doing a great job. And that's why I think another big reason why we're doing this is I think one of the things that's missing, the link between that is people need to become more invested in the players themselves. They need to know them more. One of the biggest reasons people identify with their pro team, whatever it is, like me, I'm a Jet fan. So I identify with, like Sam Darnold and all those guys. Some people are Giant fans and, you identify with those players. But with paintball, you really don't know the players. Like, there's not a whole lot. Yeah, you could look at their kill to death ratio on Go Sports, but like, yeah, if it wasn't for this podcast, like I wouldn't have known that you lived on barely any money and tried so hard to try out the damage. Like we were talking in the first episode, people need to hear these stories. And like I'm a fan now. Like I wouldn't have really cared so much of how well damage does now, but after meeting you and getting to talk to you, I'm gonna watch every single one of their games from now on out.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And all I can say is there's a bunch of other good stories, just like me. Like
So
there's
many.
some guys who didn't have quite the struggle, but I've even heard some that I didn't expect, and I know some of these guys personally from like the past few years, but I didn't know their history from before I was pro because I've only been pro for like 4 years now. So, but yeah, like some of those stories on Marcelo Margot's and Tyler Harmon's podcast, where you hear the background of guys like Yosh Rao and people that in my eyes are just, oh, they're Cali kids. They live in the paintball mecca. I'm sure when they were teenagers, everything was easy and hunky dory. And it's
Right.
like you hear like stuff they had to go through. Maybe they had teams right nearby and coaches like Bob Long looking at them, stuff like that. But they still had to go through all that nitty gritty as like young kids and teenagers, and parents that were like, fuck you. You gotta find a job working somewhere, or you got to figure out a hustle through your local paintball store. And there's just so many countless stories in pro paintball, but as paintball as a whole about, oh, that's a beautiful cat you have there.
You like my cat?
This
She came in here today. This is Isabel. Yeah, say hi, Izzy.
Oh, what a great cat. I got
two cats, but only one likes to hang out with me. She comes in here for every podcast.
She's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's funny. I hate it because like I'll accidentally interrupt other people, but I'll do it to my own stories sometimes where it's like that one cartoon where there's that dog and it's like squirrel.
Yeah.
The damage guys will tell you about this too. If I see like a really nice dog or a cat or a cool animal, it's like you lost me. Like I'm gonna walk over and pet that person's husky or whatever it may be, just because I don't know. I love them. I love animals.
Me too. I love animals. I got a dog. She's in the other room, but she's a loudmouth. She can't be in here. She might bark.
What is she?
She's a red-bone coonhound. We got her. Yeah, she was like a southern dog, and we got her during an adoption.
That is a very loud dog.
Yeah, she likes to yap, and I can't help. Like, she was bred to hunt raccoons, so anytime she hears anything, it's I'm like, can't blame her. It's in her DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very true.
But yeah, door closed. She's in the other room.
Probably good. She'd be echoing. But yeah, back to the point. So there's just a ton of stories in paintball.
So many. Like you got, and I feel like they got to be told because that will get people more invested in teams, and like it'll get the more like the average fan like to watch those games when they're like more invested in those players.
Yep. It's good because podcasts like this and the Play the Game and all those, at least they're getting those stories out there. I don't know, paintball's so massive that I'm sure the people who play tournaments and stuff at a higher level and they say, oh, there's a podcast with Matty Marshall or Jacob Edwards or whatever, they'll listen to it. But I wish more than that 10% of people listen to these, so they get the story and they go, wow, now I'm really invested. Now I really am a fan of that team rather than just I picked up a Dynasty jersey or, poster for my wall. Now it's like, man, the background of these players, it's not like other sports, like I'm sure in other sports, people have good stories, but the Yankees is just a team, or let's say a football team or basketball team, or whatever, of top round draft picks coming out of college. Where paintball, there is no college. There is no, I mean, there's college ball, but it doesn't transcend into pro paintball. There is no drafts. So it's like the guys you see on pro teams are not only guys who had to like figure out a way to afford the time and money to practice a ton and get as good as they are at the craft as they are, but they have to be a certain type of person, and it's no put down to other people because it actually makes these people, the pro paintball people, kind of crazy almost. They're wired like kind of obsessive in a way to want to do something so much and put so much emphasis on this one part of life, just playing a sport, that it makes them more than just disciplined, more than just committed. It makes them sacrifice a bunch of other stuff that everybody else just expects to do. It makes them do things like live out of cars for a bit just so they can have enough money to afford the next season. Whereas none of my non-paintball friends would think to do that. To them, giving up your standard comforts and luxuries is just unheard of because there's not this thing driving them that goes, okay, I know I like all that, but having this is worth it. I'd rather have this more than have that comfort for a little bit, and I'm willing to do without it for a bit. And I feel like that's the stories behind paintball, because everybody I know in pro paintball, not only are they cool people, because if someone's very talented, but they're an asshole and they're not fun to be stuck in a car or a flight for 8 hours with, you're not going to want that guy in your team. I've heard
still a team sport at the end of the day. It's still a team sport.
Yeah. So you have to be a certain level of like, I'm not going to say it's not like we're cool people. Like, I hope I don't mean it's like a popularity contest. Like, oh, you got to be a cool kid like in high school, but you kind of have to be a cool, interesting person to be one of the pro players, because nobody would want you on their pro team if you were just like monotone, lame guy. And yeah, you come and do your job at practice, but I don't want to stay in a hotel for 3 or 4 days with someone who's an asshole or someone who never wants to go do the fun things while we're traveling to these events. They're just boring. That guy's like, it's like there's a gray cloud in your room. And it's like, oh, like I've been with 1 or 2 of those guys on semi-pro teams. It's like, man, I can never get a smile or anything out of this person. They're just, they do their job and talk to me on the field. But there's no charisma or character here. So it's not like I'm going to vouch for this person to come and play with me in Europe, because that's going to be a terrible time off the field,
Right, because it's both. It's on and off the field.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so I'm happy you guys are telling this. I hope there's more ways to share the stories of pro players. But I guess back to where we were in the timeline. Kyle Berry is the man. Happy you guys know him. I'm happy that he is a educated marketing genius, because I think he will be one of those people that markets paintball better as a sellable product rather than just selling paintball to paintballers. I want him to make paintball this thing that other people see almost the way they see baseball or football or whatever.
Right. The other thing I wanted to say about Kyle is we did our episode for whatever, hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever. But then after we stopped the record button, we still talked to him for like another 2.5 hours just about that, like marketing. He was helping us how to market the podcast. We were talking about marketing paintball, and we went off for like hours more.
He's got a lot to say. He's a talker. I think Kyle's the only person I know who can out-talk me, where eventually I'm like, all right, I think I'm going to let this conversation drown out and go to sleep. And Kyle, he'll keep the conversation going. And I love him for it, because it's never bullshit. It's normally, he has a lot of good things to talk about, and he's enthusiastic. So, he's one of those people who sell you on an idea, and then they're normally good ideas. But Kyle Berry got me this opportunity. I pack up my stuff in one day. Next morning, wake up, hug everyone goodbye, drive down the coast of SoCal, and then over along the southern, you're basically along that throughway that's like just above Mexico, and it's going through like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, which I don't know if y'all know, but Texas, you know how the shape of it has like the handles on both sides?
Right.
It's like 16 hours to drive from one side to the other of Texas alone.
It's
so that's
so
the bulk
big.
of the trip. So yeah, I do this whole drive in like 2 days, but one of the days is Texas. And I remember I stopped out in the middle of it, in the middle of nowhere, not near any of the big cities you can name like Dallas or whatever. And at this point, I've been weaving through Texas in the dark for like, I don't know, 10 hours back and forth in this windy road. And it seems like every time I go around a corner, a huge jackrabbit runs across the road and almost makes me crash. And so like I'm getting like on edge, I'm tired, my eyes are falling asleep, and I pull over in this like horrible McDonald's / gas station in the middle of nowhere, and it just looks like I'm probably going to get murdered and kidnapped and sexually abused in my sleep if I don't do this right. And I don't have the money for a hotel. Like I probably took the last $200 I had in California, and I was like, I think if I do this right and I don't stop at a hotel, this will cover my gas to get me from here to Florida. So that's what we're dealing with again. Is I'm still doing this all with like on a whim, my last dollars in my wallet, and just trusting that, hey, I'm gonna put the faith in you, universe. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take the leap of faith and put every dollar I have in this drive, and hopefully you just help me figure out a way to make it work on the other side when I get through it. And so yeah, I stop at this gas station, pull right up to the McDonald's, go inside and tell all the employees like, hey, I'm going to be asleep in my car right there in front of your front window. Can you guys make sure nothing happens to me? Like, I have everything I own in that car. I'll tell you right now, I have no money, so please don't rob me yourselves. But all of my own personal possession in this car, please don't let anybody smash my window or fuck me up and rob me. And they're like, okay, we got you. And I went and put a bunch of like blankets in the windshields because there's the blinding white McDonald's light, and slept for like 6-7 hours. Got up, thanked them, got a cup of coffee, and then drove the rest of the way to Florida. And I get into Florida Friday afternoon, and it must have been like Friday afternoon, evening-ish or something like that, and talk to the damage guys who are at the field, like changing a layout or something like that, like a few of them. And, I showed up at Kyle Berry's. He brought me there. I can't drive my own car anymore at this point. And they're like, all right, well, you missed the tryout. It was last weekend, but Kai already told me that. But they're like, but tomorrow's our first practice. You're already on the semi-pro team. And that was how it started. Like they told me, they're like, we know you missed the tryout, but we know your ability. So you're going to walk out of the semi-pro team, and you got to prove yourself from there. And so the next day, my chapter with Damage began, and I started that season with semi-pro, which was also nerve-wracking because it's not like I was playing with like 7 or 8 guys and having to outplay them. When I first got there, there was 17 dudes on the semi-pro roster. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Which
Dude,
do the
smoke
math.
a lot of fools.
You can only bring 12 people to the event.
I was going to say, you can't even bring 17.
You can't bring them. So, and they wanted that. They wanted the inner competition. So there were 17 dudes that they thought were pro caliber. Pretty quickly, like by the time the layouts came, within like 2 months, 2 of those guys dropped off just because they probably felt like, I don't want to fight this hard for, because they were told, they're like, hey, you're all on the roster, but we're gonna pick the 12 best to go to the event, and the other guys, you're invited to play with the D2 team. When you're not cut or anything like that, and next event, you're all going to be rotating together again, and we'll take the best 12 from that. So you were always going to have like this, steel against steel to file down and bring the best players. And then at the event, we're not going to play 12 guys. You're going to play like 7 or 8. So there's like 2 basically levels of cuts, not where you're cut off the team, but to like actually get play time on the semi-pro team. And that doesn't really scare me. It's not going to stop me, but it's just to let people know, like, kind of what everybody on this team is thinking. Like, man, this is going to be cutthroat. And you're all also told, like, the Damage team wants to take one of you at the end of the season. So prove that you're the best.
Yeah. So the mentally weak guys left right away because they mentally couldn't handle it.
Exactly. We had a bunch of guys that were super, super talented from like the RCK camp. And then like a couple of other like elite Florida teams like the Kings, stuff like that. All these guys had semi-pro experience. A lot of these guys had won events, but thrown together in one new mix-mash team where it's like 3 or 4 guys that played together over here. These 3 or 4 guys that play together, you're going to have to make new starting lines. And some of the guys weren't even necessarily mentally weak, but they were the guys that were just used to doing the bare minimum. Their mentality was like, hey, we want to play pro paintball, but a lot of them are in college, let's say. So they're like, I got a frat party this weekend, or I'm getting initiated to frat. So I'll be there for the layout weekends, but I'm not going to be there. And this is where I really learned all my lessons in what it takes to be a pro, because I was like, I'm going to outplay all these guys. I'm going to really work hard to outwork all these guys. But when you're a semi-pro and you're, one of 17 guys being looked at, and only one's going up, and if you look around, quite a few of them are just as good as you and just as experienced. And some of them, like let's say Alex Spence, for example, was on the team, are good friends with the pro guys. So it's like, once again, it's like that first time I came and tried out, I'm trying out against, LP Everett. He's been friends with all of them for like 10 years. He was on Strange. So now there's that little fear in the back of my head again. It's like, man, is all this going to pay off? Or at the end of the season, are they just going to bring Spence back because he was on Damage for years and then he battled through cancer and now it's his chance to come back? Like, how cool of a return story that be? He fought cancer, he took a year or 2 off to get healthy and play with RCK at like a lower level where he doesn't have to beat himself up every weekend. And now he gets to come back on Damage. Everybody can see that as being like the winner's story, Right. But in my head, it was like, I cannot have any doubt or disbelief. I got to believe that no matter what, everything I do is going to like highlight me as the only obvious choice.
Right.
And like, I think I told you guys this last time, like I've always learned that, an idiot doesn't learn from their mistakes. A smart person learns from their mistakes, but a very smart person doesn't wait till they make the mistake. You learn from the other mistakes around you. So I was just like very aware of this that whole season. Like I was obviously practicing as hard as I could at the actual, physical practice, but I was thinking about all the other things. And I remember there were a couple guys who they were practicing really hard when they were there, but they weren't there every weekend. They were there on the mandatory practice schedule.
Right.
I was like, man, what if that's the reason I don't get picked? So every what if went through my head. Like I even wrote it down at one point where I was like, okay, these would be all the reasons you don't get picked up. Even if you were the very best player, if you're there 75% of the time, you're just not showing them that you're always down and that they can always depend on you every weekend. And a lot of people say 80% of success is just showing up. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be there every weekend. If I can play both days, like unless people say no one's going to be there Saturday, I'm going to be there. And even most of those Saturdays, I'm going to be there to drill. And hopefully there's just people there to see me so they can go, oh, Joe was even out there Saturday,
Right.
If there's random Wednesday night drill days, I was going to be there too. So that was like a big thing, is that I was just always there. And then sometimes guys were there most every weekend like me, but they would show up a little bit late, or they would show up hungover, or they were smoking weed in the parking lot halfway through the day. I mean, things like that, that if you were any other type of sport and you were a professional sports team, you wouldn't do that shit. So I was like, man, these guys are really, really good. Like there were a few guys that I was fighting my spot that I could tell they were right there with me. And I guess I'm not going to name names because, I don't want to like, it's a private thing. You know what I mean? I don't want to blow up their spots, but like there were 3 of them that 2 of them, I think at the time were just as good as me, but they were smaller than me and faster than me. So all of the things, we all have great gun skills. We're all semi-pro caliber players all day. And if you plug us in, like here and there, the pro team would ask for these 4 of us at the end of the day. It was always the same 4 of us that like, hey, jump here, in here, play this spot, just to see how we meshed in with their pro line. if we could come in and fill a role. And normally a good semi-pro player with 4 other pro players around, you'll do the same jobs and roles. Like, you know what you're doing out there. So those guys would come in and they would play really good, and they were, physically as good as me, but they were smaller and they were much faster. They were making front spots way quicker than me. So I was like, fuck, that's going to be tough. But honestly, at the time, one of them was kind of an alcoholic. Like, he would show up hungover, or even if he wouldn't show up hungover, he was getting drunk, like, at the events. Like, he would get done
Not
playing,
a good look.
day drink in the field, and it's just not a good look wearing, damaged sponsor stuff. And the other one was kind of an idiot on his social media, and he's cleaned it up a lot since then. But if he knows about it, and you asked him, he would even tell you that, because I would talk to him about it hanging out, and I kind of knew I was giving my competition tips, but I was just like, hey man, like, isn't it kind of weird that you think you're kind of loud on, like, Facebook and Instagram, like dumb pictures and videos of you like partying, or I don't know, like falling off picnic tables drunk. Like, yeah, it looks funny, like you can party hard, but that's not a good look in your professional side of your career,
Right. GI Sports doesn't really want to see that.
Yeah. So luckily, the guys that I was competing with, like the hardest neck and neck in terms of these guys would win the point for the team as often as I would, they just weren't very responsible, And so I thought event after an event, because the way Kyle had told to me, it was like, hey, if you're really shining after event 1, we might bring you up, because we have the room on the roster. And the first event went by, and I'm already like, I make it. I'm one of the 12 out of the 17. And then by the end of the first 2 layouts, like the layout weekends going to the event, I already know I'm going to be one of the 8 that's getting rotated like a lot. And then at the event, I'm the starting back center guy.
Nice.
So I play every single point. And then the next event, I end up being the starting Dorito front player. Like, it was a tough Dorito layout, and I'm just like the only person who can get it done over there. I'm actually the Dorito side insert player, but eventually, because all the front guys were just kind of playing like too forceful and aggressive on a more slow, patient layout, we just started playing with me on an island out there, 1 middle guy and 3 snake way. So now I'm our Dorito side that whole event. It's just me. Like, there's no 2 guys Dorito side. I'm not a front or a back guy. I'm just our Dorito player.
Yeah.
And throughout the season, I end up playing every role. So by the end of the season, I've kind of showed that I can be like the guy, not just good at one thing, but I can be like the go-to guy in a lot of spots. I've not missed a practice. I've not showed up hungover. I haven't got a DWI or done anything stupid. And so World Cup finishes, and it was like this weird time stops sobering moment, even though I was sober, where we're showing up for like the first practice, for like just a fun practice day, like before Christmas. And the damage guys walk over to me and they're like, hey, so we're bringing you up to the pro team. And dude, that moment was like, still to this day, I could say it was like one of the most shocking but happiest moments ever, where you still aren't sure if it's happening because it's all you've worked for your whole life. Like I told you guys last time, this just isn't my first time going pro in X-Ball. Like NPPL, it is what it is, and then it fell apart. But still, even then, when I was pro in 7-man, I was like, I'm not going to consider myself a pro player until I go pro in the bigger league and the format everyone wants to be in.
Right.
So not only do I go pro in this, but Damage was the only pro team I ever wanted to be on, because this is like the team of like badass players, the best gunfighters in the world, the huge budget. I think I'm going to get paid back then. I know I'm not going to get paid this time. This is all I ever want to do to fulfill my life's destiny, is go pro with, I don't want to walk in with Aftershock or one of the bottom 4 teams. I want to prove that when I come into pro, I'm going to come into pro on one of the top tier teams.
Right.
And it happened, and it was like, dude, it was crazy. Like, they hand me a brand new Lux because they're going to go to DLX this season. And they're like, your gear package is on the way. And I played paintball in with them all day. And then I went home, and it was like just this weird, confusing explosion of emotions. Like, like laughing so hard that I'm crying because it's just like it happened.
Yeah.
Life happened. Like finally I did what I wanted to do, and
Yeah.
like up until this point, it's like, I don't know, I was 10 when I started this journey. This is the beginning of 2016. So it's like 15 full years till this all comes to premonition. And now I'm doing what I want to do,
Right. It's like, I was like, how do I want to say it? Like, you've been waiting your whole moment for this life and it finally happened, whether to cry or whatever. But I'm also sure that in the back of your head, you also knew that means your work has also just begun. Yeah, you finally made it to pro, but the journey still has a long way to go.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that happened. I mean, at first I'm happy, and I'm also like, is this real? And I'm almost asking guys like, are you fucking with me? Or no, I'm on it. I mean, there's a Lux in my hands. I guess I'm on damage. This is sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, like I've never been one of those people who just wants to go pro, and it's not like I can name a guy who does that. But some people, as soon as they go pro in a lot of things, they're just happy to be pro, but they're not trying to be the best or earn their starting spot. They're happy to be the third string QB in the NFL because it still means they're getting a huge paycheck and they don't even have to really play or practice much. They kind of
Right.
know they're not playing, so they don't have to work as hard or like really push their limits again. But as hard as
they get to tell everyone that they're in the NFL.
Exactly, it's more a status thing, and there are I will say there's a ton of people like that in paintball who they want their D2 team to bump up to semi-pro just so they can say they're a semi-pro player.
Mm-hmm.
And in their mind, they're like, no, I can tell somebody else semi-pro and I have this rank and status and, I'm badass and maybe it'll get me on other teams that cover more. But it's like, did your D2 team win any events or the series title? No. Did you even win one event? No. Then why do you feel that you guys are ready to move up as a team? Like, yeah, you don't have to buy your spot. It's not pro, but your D2 team didn't even prove that you're the best D2 team. You're, in my eyes, only going up to semi-pro because you want to be semi-pro,
Right.
And I didn't want to go up to pro and sit on the bench like I saw a lot of guys do, especially Damage, one of those teams who is known to only play their starting five, whether they're winning or losing. At the time, a lot of those other dudes, like Kyle and Mikey and Silos even back then until he started getting into more of a flow in his later year or two with them, those dudes would only – I remember some of them got that whole season that I was on semi-pro. Obviously, I'd be watching them play pro and helping those guys to know that they're going to be in our pits helping us. And some of those guys got only 5 points the whole season. And I was like, I am not about to go pro and play 5 points in a season. There's no way. So as hard as I just worked to get on this team, I'm going to work twice as hard and really push the limits of what I think I can do or where my play style is so that they have to play me, that I can be rotated as a sixth guy or whatever. And things compounded, it's funny because like my whole journey, it's like every time I do something, it's like maybe I'll get a break, not that I think I'm going to break and people are just going to play me, but maybe I'm going to get onto this team that's still the rebuilding version of them. Well, here's what happens. I come on to Damage, who at the time only had 7 dudes, 4 or 5 like of their old school guys like Holiday, Chad Bougere, Jason and Jacob Edwards, and then a couple young rookies. And when I got on, they cut Kyle, who is the reason that I'm there. So they cut my best friend in Florida. And it was not a personal thing. It was just like, hey, well, we're bringing you on, and we're not really giving this dude up spins over here. We feel like he should go back to our semi-pro team and learn how to win and make it where when we bring him up this time, he's ready. You know what I mean? And that makes sense from a pro standpoint. And it is what it is. And he didn't take it personally, but it was like, shoot, I almost felt like I was backstabbing him because even though I didn't take his spot, there was an extra spot and they could have kept us both, but they just went, we're not going to keep a guy that never gets played. It felt like, man, I just moved here. Kyle let me stay a few months in his apartment, and then I took his spot. And for so long, I felt guilty about that because it was like, if not for him telling me the grass is greener over here, come move to Florida, I'll make it so you can do it, I would have never been on this team. And now I'm coming on, and he's getting moved back down to the semi-pro team that I just came from. And to make matters worse, they bring in Matt Derula, who's a pretty good player, and Tim Montressor.
Pretty good.
And even better, Tim Montressor, who's a legend and who plays kind of more of an insert role like me. So it's like, oh, I didn't expect to take Jason's spot as like the back center quarterback, but Tim is going to come in as a 2, and that's going to make it tough to get playtime. Plus, Derula is a 2. And it's like, man, this is going to be really, really hard to get playtime. And on top of that, they brought back Ramzi Al-Yusuf, who used to be a longtime, veteran of damage. Not the best player, honestly. Any one of them will tell you that. But he's their family, and he's good enough. Like, he knows how to play the game. He's experienced. He was rusty for not playing a few years, but he's won plenty of events in pro with damage, so he knows what to do out there. So LP Everett's still on. A few guys are coming back from like a season off. Timmy Probst. So for this first event, we have 12 dudes. We have a full roster in pro. And I know what that means, especially on a team like Damage. They might rotate 7, but even of that 7, those extra 2 are going to play here and there. And it's going to be the same 5 unless they want to change the look or have like a super center heavy play or something like that. It's going to be the same 5 guys that play Damage paintball.
Right.
So yeah, I'm on this team. There's 12 people. There's a coach who doesn't really know me, Pat McKenna, and my work is carved out for me. And if I want to play the Dorito front spot, which I'm starting to play front more, I got to get played over Jacob Edwards, who is hands down one of the most gun dominant bullies in the league.
Yeah.
So yeah, I start working my ass off, going to the gym even longer. And I remember playing that first event in Vegas. I finally got a point against, I want to say it was the Outlaws. And it came down to like a 2-on-2 with me and Timmy Probst against 2 of them. And he traded with a guy. I shot the other guy. And I hit the buzzer on my very first point in pro paintball. And that was kind of euphoric itself. It was like, holy crap, I didn't get shot off break or make a dumb move or die in a gunfight and then get benched the whole rest of the game. Like, they put me in. I went and won the point. And I felt like, okay, I know I can belong out here. Like, the nerves were gone. I wasn't overly worried or feeling like, it's dynasty downfield. They make no mistakes. I just felt like, okay, there's a reason you got here. You can play this game, And it just progressed from there. Like, I think I only played 3 points that event. I think the next event in Dallas, I only played like 7 or 8 points. But the points I got in, I was producing. I was doing a job as the Dorito side 2 behind Jacob and shooting a lot of guys. Me and Jason won a 2-on-3 against Dynasty, and I was stoked about that. And then the third event, I played a lot, and that was the event, I want to say it was Cleveland, or I think it was Cleveland. This is when Damage went from, a rebuilding team to like people could tell. I remember Matty Marshall was talking about on the webcast a lot. It was the meanest team in paintball, which is weird because I'm not a mean guy, but I'm on this team where you have Tim, who's super loud and let's go kill these motherfuckers. And you got Jacob and Jason, who are brawlers, and just like a hot-headed Florida team that plays best when they play with a chip on their shoulder. They're not a composed, quiet, calm team. They're a let's get pumped up and go kill these guys type team. And all through prelims, we're playing like the best nitty-gritty paintball I've ever played or got to rewatch and see. Like, there's plenty of times where we're losing 2 off break and we're just winning 3-on-5s because everybody's just dug in, and Jason and Tim and Jacob are out gunfighting people. And anytime I get my point in, which is like every 3 points, I'm just like doing my job, and I'm locked in staying alive long enough for these vets to do what they do best and be clutch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to chop them up.
Exactly. And I'm not necessarily superstarring it down the D side, but I'm always alive out there, and I'm playing methodical aggression down the side, and just doing what I'm supposed to do, and getting kills as well. And we're playing against. We have a tough bracket. We have like Impact, Let's see here. Outlaws, who are like a good wild card for the first few events. Like they sometimes are making Sunday. Aftershock, who's playing really good this event for some reason. And then another top tier team, I forget who, that we actually beat. So we beat, I want to say, whoever the top tier team was, and Outlaws. And a lot of these games are like close 1-point games, but we're winning. So we're just like, Russian Legion is climbing the other bracket dominantly, like decisively, pounding teams like 6-0. And we're like scraping and scrapping wins. We lose an overtime game to Impact, and we go into this last game against Aftershock. And I'll never forget this match because Shock is playing good, but Karl Markowski is playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
He is doing what Karl does, fastest man in paintball, running a snake 50 off break on his gun, running up and over from the center 50 straight across, diving over snake bunkers, running to the RD3 off break. Just wherever he goes, he's about to be a bullet. But sometimes go one side, shadow across the box at 1 second, and run all the way to the other 50. So you just don't know where the attack's coming from on Shock. And while he's doing that, other guys are playing off the chaos, and the points are going back and forth. And they go into overtime with us. And at this point, we're 2-1. If we beat them, we're in 3-1. If we lose 2-2, we're not making out of a bracket. So we go into overtime, and I'm like ready to just help start potting the starting five. And I remember Tim Montresor asked McKenna, our coach, Pat McKenna, to put me in. And I love Tim for this, rest in peace. Tim is my man. And, I know there's other guys on the team that knew him a lot longer than I did. And it's not like I knew him that long, but he's been a hero of mine for so long. And then playing with him and him getting these opportunities in like Asia and Mexico and all that, like I owe a lot to him. He's just he was such an amazing dude, always trying to help people and like, open a door for yourself. And Tim opened the door right here for me to step up and be clutch. And at the time, I think, and they were telling me this was like something I had to work at. They were like, you need to be more like Jacob and go win games for us. Like we brought you on to be our new rookie that go wins games. But I think why they wanted me in this point was because they knew, and they always said, they're like, we know you'll never lose us the game. Like you're not going to make dumb mistakes or play sloppy. You're generally like my survivability is kind of something I'm known for. I can live in pinches or live behind my gun with people right next to me very well. So they knew I wasn't going to cost us the game. And on this particular layout, you didn't really need your Dorito front guy to go win the game for you. Jacob was just really good at doing it no matter what layout. So Jacob was kind of struggling. So they put me in as the Dorito side one. And I made it out wide. And I think we lost 1 or 2 off break. We shot a body and kind of brought it back to closer to even. And then eventually they shot, I think they traded with someone on Snakeside, and it brought me and Jason into a 2-on-3 against whoever their Dorito player was, a guy in the middle, and Karl Markowski. And Jason traded with someone like edging for him down the side. He shot them, but they put one on him, and it left me in a 1-on-2. And I remember I'm in like D3 at this point. Like I'm slowly working down the field, and their guy is in like D2. And I know Carl's somewhere over on Snakeside. That's the way he went. Mm-hmm. So at this point, like if you think about the lineup, I have a guy straight in front of me. I have a guy who's like a cross field who's going to come down that side. And at this point, pro players at least know it. Like the chess move is this guy in front of me should just wait for the other guy to pinch me. But if the guy in front of me is going to do anything, he's not going to fight me on the wire and give me a chance to shoot him. He's going to take the highway move because I should have to be looking straight across at the snake guy. So I was like, I know this is going to happen. So I got real low and wrapped, and I saw him coming down the highway, and I shot him clean before he bunkered me. And then I wrapped around my bunker before he could shoot me and was completely clean. And when I look up inside, Karl Markowski is taking off for the buzzer on the chaos. And I just leaned inside and put like 20 balls right in front of my back center and shot Karl, and he slid to a stop and caught the entire rest of the lane. And right there, the kill count, I knew it was kill 3. I was like, holy shit. I just won the 1-on-2 in overtime, and it's going to get us out of prelim. And it was ridiculous. I went and hit the buzzer, came back in, and there's no thank you, there's no congrats, because you're on Tampa Bay Damage, and they expect this out of every one of their guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, you come in, and it's not like there's no hype on you or, thanks for saving us or whatever. Not that I want it, but it's just like that's the level of this team where you come in and it's like a pat on the back, like good job, get ready for next game, and that's it. And then we're pissed that the game got that close against Shock, because this is a team that we should be beating up on paper. So, their motto at that is even going to Sunday, all 5 events that year, it's not like, oh, that's a pretty successful season. You're not successful unless you're winning winning
Mm-hmm.
events. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I like that mindset for them, because that really taught me a lot. Like, until then, I was always kind of one of those people who, obviously, I don't think you're successful if you're winning, but I was able to go, okay, well, last event we got 8th, this event we got 5th. So we're progressing. That's a good event. But in their eyes, even getting a 3rd or something like that is like they're pissed, because they expect nothing less than greatness, because Damage used to win 5 events in a row back in the day.
Right.
So
greatness is in like their DNA, so it's just like a part of their culture.
Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the moment where I learned that lesson too. On like, there is no people say this on like NFL teams about like the closer guys, like Michael Jordan, stuff like that. Like, they don't give you a pat on the back or a great job when you sink that bucket at the 1 second before the buzzer and you win by a point.
Right, because that's your job. You're supposed to do that.
Exactly. You're not coming in clutch and saving them. You're just doing what we expect you to do. That you're a pro player. We brought you on the team, and that's your job. So it was like an eye-opening moment for me, because in my mind, this is like the most important point I've ever played. It's my 3rd pro event. It's an overtime point that they're giving me the spin for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it came down to just me. And I didn't it's not like we won the point decisively. I won a 1-on-2 to win the point. And that got us out of prelims, or we wouldn't have moved on. And nobody bats an eye. You know what I mean? Because to them, it's like, thanks for doing your job. Cool. Yeah, you did your job.
Yeah.
All right. Man, this is now the standard I have to hold myself to, where if I'm not playing like a beast every single point I'm in pro, then it's not that you're playing for a thanks, but if you're not playing like a beast, now you're at fault. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now you're not even doing your job. Like, they expect more from you, and that more is constant, consistent greatness. And that's something that I've carried over to DMG, where I try to tell these guys, like, it's not enough for you guys to just be role players and just be out there like surviving, or you did your job to the end. It's like, you got to do everything you can. You got to be doing your job and then some, and like playing, dug in like a tick, surviving in bad situations, or ferociously attacking, regardless of if someone is better than you, matched up heads up with you. Because if you're not doing that, if you're just playing up to your level rather than trying to exceed your limit, then you're costing us games that maybe we could win if you would play 150%. So I'm forever grateful for, Montresor for that moment, and for the whole Damage organization for showing me that other mindset, how to like exceed and transcend to the next level of what a professional should be looking for out of themselves.
Yeah, no, dude, you're so right in everything you're saying. So, but before we go any further, I mean, man, we just did another 2 hours. I love it. I love having you on. You're the best, dude. So, that just means we have to have you back. I mean, you signed up for this, because we didn't even talk about Sacramento yet and how your story with them.
It's true. I guess when you have a long career of like tough teams and tough lessons, it's hard to just jump. I hope you let other guys get this chance too, because slow people down is all I can say. If you're asking people, so how'd you start paintball, and they talk a little bit about it, and then they say, and then I was in this team, and then I was in this team, and then now I'm pro on what an X Factor. It's like, whoa. Give me the potatoes. Like, you didn't really tell me what made you into the you that got you on X Factor or whatever team. That's just the example. Like,
Right.
you really need to see what makes people get through these teams. And then it's not as easy as someone sees you on a team and just invites you over. Oh, now you're on with us. Sometimes it takes these weird things. So, I'm happy to come back for part 3 to get to where we currently are. That there were still a few more events there with Damage, and then now it's DMG. But I feel like if I would have just skipped ahead and told you about the DMG chapter, I'd rob people of like a lot of the middle story. You'd just be jumping.
No, your stories are so great, dude. Like, it's so good. So, like, I feel like you could teach younger players so much just from hearing your story. So I'm glad you elaborate on all that stuff. And yeah, back to what you were saying before, I like that because a lot of times they'll be like, oh, how'd you start playing paintball? Okay, well, I played a birthday party and then I joined a team and then played a party. It's like, no. Okay, so you played paintball at that party. What about it did you enjoy? Like, was it the rush of hiding behind the bunker? Was it the first time you gogged somebody? Was it what about it? Like, what got the juices flowing? I try and like bring that out of them.
Yep. Yeah, you guys do well. I've actually been watching most of your episodes, and I love
We
it.
appreciate it.
If there's not just giving people the time rather than a structured 10-question list, and it's like they feel, even if you don't rush them, sometimes people feel like they have to get right to the point or two. This is what led me here. But it's like even saying, oh, I was on this D3 team and we won a bunch of events. So then I went to this semi-pro team. It's like, yeah, but like, tell me about the struggles. Like, you just said you moved from one team here to over here. How'd you do that? How'd your life change? How the hell did you pick up and move across country? Or how did you find a new job to make it work? And I feel like it's those details, like the behind the scenes stuff that we really don't think about because it's not on paper. It's not quantifiable. That's really the stuff that when I would ask my mentors, like, dude, I know you practice hard. I know you had to do all this and that, but like, how did you know that you were going to make it when you just said, I guess I'm throwing all my eggs in this basket and moving to this new area with no job lined up? That was the kind of stuff that inspired me to go, you know what? You can do this thing, with a little bit of trust and perseverance and willingness to live uncomfortable and work really hard. The universe normally isn't going to let you down.
Right. I know. I love when I talk to people and like when I'm like, well, what made you do that? Like, I just didn't want to leave myself. There was only one option. I wanted to leave myself one option, success. And I'm like, oh, that's so fucking cool, dude. Jesus. Like you, like I'm moving down to Florida and I'm going to make it work because this is the only option for me. There's only one thing on the table, becoming a pro paintball player. There was no like, oh, I'm going to maybe get in marketing. It's like, no, man, this is what it's about.
There can be no plan B to get out of like the ordinary life. I think I told you that last time, but it's, if you know you have a dream that you want to live, not just like, oh, I'm just going to like go with the flow of life or, take this job that's offered to me. If there's this thing that you want to get to and everything else is just a means to that end, you have to fucking sink your ships. There can't be a backup plan where you can go, man, this is getting really hard. Let me hop back on board and flee back to the motherland where the safety net is. It is 100%. You are fully submersed into it, committed.
Yeah, you got to be singular focused. I heard Gary Vee talking about it. He was saying, he's like, he sees a lot of people that like want to improve what they're good at. Like, oh, I'm not good at English. No, I'm not. It's like, nah, find the thing you are good at and fucking quadruple down on that. Don't try and fix all the, like, paintball is our life. So yeah, let's not try and be a mechanic. Let's triple down on paintball and go running every day and do snap shooting drills and do this. And that's how you become like great.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I guess we are literally at 2 hours right now. And
I know it seems about a good time because now next time maybe we'll have you back after the Louisville event. You could tell us a little bit about that, and we'll go back into your time with DMG.
I would love that. Everything will be nice and relevant. This is going to be a really cool event to talk about just because it is the only thing this summer. So yeah, I'd love that.
Right. I mean, obviously our goal for this in general is also to be talk about more events, but unfortunately with COVID, there's not too many. So we definitely want to have you on to talk about that one.
Cool. Absolutely. I'd love it. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And this has been a lot of fun as always. I want to give a big shout out to your podcast and you guys for always taking the time to do this. I look forward to part 3.
Yeah, me and you both, man. I can't wait. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys later. Thanks.
Later.